If everybody could have a seat, cut your cell phones off. Cut them off or put them on silent, either one. Not that I'd be prone to embarrass anybody for disturbing a standing committee meeting of the House, but it will cost you if your cell phone goes off. Done her for the whole committee, if not for the whole House. I'd like to welcome everybody here to the House Regulated Industries Committee meeting today at its regular time. Before I do that, is there any of the members that are here today that wasn't at the first organizational meeting that would like to introduce themselves? Well, if not, I did make an error at the last meeting when I introduced the subcommittee chairs. I erroneously forgot to introduce the chairman of Alcohol and Tobacco, Mr. Williams. Yes. And as a show of bipartisan support, Mr. Mitchell. All right. Today we've got one bill. I'm going to be presenting that bill first, and I'm going to be very quick about it so that we've got some of the interested industry partners today that's going to give a instructional tutorial lesson on the three-tier system. That being said, I'm going to turn this over to the committee vice chair, Mr. Jones.
Chair, we move to pass.
You're out of order there, Mr. Mitchell.
What else is in there?
Mr. Chairman, let me get your microphone on. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. I bring to you today House Bill 192. Before I start, I want to introduce the commissioner. Lynn, I saw you in it.
Yes, sir.
Lynn Dempsey, the commissioner of the Georgia Real Estate and Appraisers Commission. It's always good to have him over here. House Bill 192 is a very simple bill. So simple, we introduced it for the last 3 years, and we're just now getting around to passing it. Back in the early 2000s, the federal government, because of the issue of doing appraisals for loans at the lending institutions, the federal government put into force something called the appraisal management companies. Georgia adopted this, and I think I handled that bill in 2010, where we adopted that bill. The Real Estate and Appraiser Board, they license the individual appraisers, but because of the requirements of the federal government, any Georgia appraiser has to go through these appraisal management companies to satisfy the needs, wants, and desires of the federal government. If that don't make you feel warm and sexy, I don't know what does. That being said, for the last 3 years, we've been trying to put them in sync, the state of Georgia and their duties in sync to the federal laws. 3 years ago, we did the bill, and we had to just basically let the bill die because the feds changed their regulations. Did the same last year. Same thing happened. This year, we brought forth a bill that puts us in complete sync with the federal statutes as it applies. For your information, there's 180 of these appraisal management companies in the state of Georgia, and you've got to go, a licensed appraiser has to go through these to do these type of loans to satisfy the requirements of the federal government. I'd be glad to stand for any questions, ladies and gentlemen of the committee.
Any members of the committee with questions? Mr. Mitchell, I'll let you do the honor.
I move to pass.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Thank you, committee.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank
you've
you,
got
Mr.
your
Chairman.
bill. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, committee. One day I'll get a chance to introduce y'all to Sonny Watson, my mentor up here. All right, that being said, we've got some friends of Georgia business that's going to put on a show for us today, a little informational session. And if y'all would, just gather together, introduce yourselves. And Lynn, you don't have to leave just because we finished your business. I did get it took care of.
All righty, thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Casey Honeyman. I'm the Executive Director of the Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of Georgia. And I've got to my right my counterpart with the beer wholesalers, Martin Smith, and my counterpart on the retail side, Stoney McGill, with the Georgia Alcohol Dealers Association. So we were asked by the chairman to put together a presentation for y'all pretty hastily about the three-tier system in Georgia, and I thought we'd start with a little anecdote. The first committee meeting, we talked about, the chairman talked about how he first served on Georgia's Temperance Committee. And so up there you see Georgia Congressman William D. Upshaw. He's a Democrat from Noonan, and he tried very hard to be the driest of the dries, as you can tell by putting the umbrella over the U.S. Capitol. This is back in the Prohibition days, and he was actually the presidential nominee for the Prohibition Party. And it was just, it's really, I have that picture in my office, and it's just a sign of how far we've come as a state to go from an unregulated marketplace to a prohibition state, which we'll talk about, into the current structure of today. So it's kind of a sign of how far we've come as a state, and it's always fun to reflect back. So real quick, just a breakdown of the tiers before we get into really the history here. Up there you can tell the all three tiers here, and I did want to say that we're honored to be here and to help explain, and the idea here is to educate y'all and to certainly not upset any of the folks, other members of the industry that are seated behind us that we work with every single day. So a quick breakdown, you can tell on the left-hand side, I'm going to talk about the suppliers really quick. Of course, this is where licensed breweries, wineries, and distilleries make the product. These producers are also known as suppliers. They can be small or large, craft or macro, located in Athens, Georgia, Athens, Alabama, or Athens, Greece, and they number in the tens of thousands across the world. But once a supplier has a finished product, they need a partner to help efficiently move that good out into the marketplace.
And that partner by design is the wholesaler or distributor, and that's the group that I represent. And they're sometimes called the middle tier, and they're the middle tier that's kind of bottleneck the process for the tax collections and remittance. But the wholesaler works as kind of a central link between the suppliers and the retailers. Georgia licensed wholesalers work hand in hand with the suppliers and take the products from whether it's wineries, breweries, or distilleries from once inside this state, or they can be around the world. It can be in a different country. But those suppliers are licensed through our state, and then the products are assigned and distributed by our folks, which are Georgia-owned distributors getting to the local market. And we're the logistics experts of making the deliveries in every one of y'all's districts. The products that are sold to or purchased by the consumers are brought to that market by the wholesalers, and that tax is collected from the retailer at that point and given back and remitted to the state and local areas every single month. That's part of the duties of the wholesaler, and because of that, it creates a product that can be found anywhere in the world here in Georgia, and be delivered safe in a transparent and well-regulated way with an efficiently produced remittance of the tax. So that's where the wholesalers fall.
All right, I'm Stoney McGill, and I'm speaking on behalf of the retailers here. The third tier, which is combined of retailers, these are the members in our industry that almost everywhere a consumer purchases alcohol is through one of the retailers that's represented, one of the retail groups that's represented in this room. There's over 20,000 licensed retail locations in the state. They range from package stores, which is my group, convenience stores, grocery stores, restaurants, bars, hotels. We're kind of the last line of defense on selling alcohol to minors and those type things, and so we're the last line on that concept. So what does this mean? So whether you're searching for a single malt scotch, a tequila to go with your margarita, champagne to celebrate a special occasion, a Napa Cab for a dinner party, all those things, one way or the other, come from the three-tier system to our locations to the consumer. We feel that this system allows for a very even playing field for the retailers. As most of my folks are small mom and pops, we can compete with the bigger folks because we have a very, like I said, even playing field that treats each retailer the same, and we feel like that's makes it possible for the independent mom and pops to compete in this economy. Alcohol has always been and remains one of the most heavily regulated publicly available products in the country, and it's this system that gives the state and the local governments solid controls over distribution of alcohol within its borders. It manages balance, public safety, and consumer demand, and it is an effective regulation of a very a socially sensitive product. That's our part of the tier.
So a history kind of that's the system that we're in now, but it's instructive of us to kind of look back at really how we got here. And a discussion of a regulation of any product really needs to look at the product itself. What is it and what isn't it? And alcohol is an intoxicant, and therefore it's not just like any other product, right? This is a product that's not sold or handled like any other products, and societies throughout history have treated alcohol differently than any other products. And with it, it can be used in a social setting, as we've all seen, but it can also be abused, and that abuse can lead to some serious consequences in the communities that we live in. So we need to discuss any proposed changes within the correct context here, and openly and honestly look at the real consequences and changes to changing this policy. The current system of laws and regulations came about for very good reasons, however, and it's an important, in this discussion, it's very important to remember that sometimes our laws and regs kind of get picked on as being old or antiquated, but sometimes I think to back out a little bit, you need to look at that sometimes the system is really the victim of its own success. So when you back out and look at the UK or Russia, China, Mexico, other developed first world countries, we simply do not have the problems that they have with adulterated product, counterfeit, so on and so forth, that they have because of this three-tier system. So America certainly has, to back up a little bit, has had a tumultuous relationship with alcohol in the past. It's the only consumer product that is subject of not one but two U.S. Constitutional amendments, rather. This is not something that no other consumer good can claim. And prior to our current regulatory structure, our marketplace was vertically integrated. And so what that means is suppliers, right now we're horizontal, before we were vertical. It means that these tied houses, as the direct relationship between suppliers and retailers became known as, it resulted in unfair market practices that cost our nation heavily. Suppliers dictated to retailers how much and what kind of goods could be sold, and that led to rock-bottom sales, overindulgence, and fewer players left to compete in the marketplace. So with the 18th Amendment, prohibition, the government's answers to societal issues took the market from one extreme, totally unregulated, to absolutely banned. So demand of alcohol still existed, and this led to incentivized crime in a black market. Prohibition on its face was an absolute policy failure, and it created worse problems like lost jobs, a black market run by the mafia, bootlegging, deadly and adulterated products, corruption, and even more lost tax revenue. It's clear that alcohol needed to be well regulated locally by the states, and it's not like other products in the market. No other option was truly acceptable. So after 13 years of prohibition, the 21st Amendment repealed the 18th and granted states, Georgia and other states, the primary authority to regulate beverage alcohol within its borders. And it's important to note that all 50 states have put in place their form of a three-tier system. It's widely accepted that vertical integration or the ownership and control of the supply, distribution, and sales channels of this product had a huge role to play in the rampant overabuse and overindulgence in the marketplace.
So, kind of the solution that as Casey talked about, each state was given the authority to create their own form of three-tier. And so all 50 states have a form of that, and it's based on what their constituents' desires are and what their legislature, so they're all a little unique from one another, but one binding thing is the separation of the different parts of these tiers from one another. That's what creates the independence that allows for fair and free access to the market. I talk about it all the time that if you look on the side of a truck that's delivering things, what's that brand on the side of the truck is not what's necessarily just on the inside. Because of the independence of the wholesaler from the others and the independence of them from us, it allows for the small producers, the large producers to all be mingled on that same truck to get to the same stores, to get on the same shelves. And that independence is crucial. So once the states settled on that, what it does is it creates an efficient tax collection because our guys are the ones who have the auditing trail to be able to deliver that and at the time of sale to the retailers, excuse me, to collect and remit that tax. And we have the license and the ability to do that and the responsibility of the state when we go in and check on the wall what that license is, that they have their local and state license, that we've received the product from the correct brewer that's been approved by the feds and by the state. So that tax collection is done at your local level every month and state level every month, for all the types of different alcohols. It encourages competition. I tell guys all the time that our guys all get along as far as they know each other, but they would love to take each other's business, to get into their market share, to do that. That's the same for us. That's the suppliers that do that. That's what the retailers do, and that is allowed because of the separation in those tiers and the independence of it, because one can't control what the others are going to do. The unparalleled variety, again, because of that. If you go down go into a package store, go into a grocery store, go into a convenience store, go into a restaurant, you can see all of this variety there because everybody has free access to it. You can't influence those retailers to carry certain products versus other grocery goods. You can kind of see it's very limited. We always talk about the Coke and Pepsi thing. It's just red and blue going down their aisle. But it's not that on alcohol, and it creates, they said that, if y'all know familiar what SKUs are, the only thing that has more SKUs than alcohol is makeup, cosmetics. So it's a huge variety that's brought by this. It ensures consumer safety. So if there is and this happens every now and then, there could be a problem either in the manufacturing of it or later on in the storage or any number of things that could be identified as there's a problem with that product because of this separation and the state's involvement of making sure there's documentation of where this is. It's easily captured, easily taken out of the marketplace, keeping our consumers and your constituents safe. It provides quality jobs. On the wholesale side, we employ about 6,000 people across the state. Again, with the retailers have a huge number with each of their stores, whether that's the package stores, again, the grocery stores, all associated, the restaurants. It has a huge impact on the quality jobs. Eliminates counterfeit product. Casey's talked about that. If you look in other countries where it's kind of free reign, not as regulated, you read about it all the time. It's very unfortunate that people are getting product that's been adulterated and can kill folks, make them very sick. It's not what they think it is. It could be more alcohol than they planned for. So this helps keep all of that in control. Can talk about the work with the department.
Yeah.
So the other part that I think is very important, and I feel most comfortable talking about, is as legislators, y'all create new laws or create laws or just laws about the alcohol regulatory system. And the Department of Revenue, Alcohol and Tobacco Division, is the one that represents the state in this enforcement. And each of our parts here deal with them directly on a very constant basis. And they do a great job. I mean, they're doing the job that y'all prescribe for them to make sure that these licenses are issued, that the products are checked, that it's auditable, that the taxes are being collected, that the right players are in there not breaking the rules. And they're very good at making sure of that. Sometimes to speak on, to kind of defend them, they've got 40 to 60 agents trying to do these things. There's thousands of stores out there, tons of rules. When y'all look at changing things, sometimes whether it's, sometimes it could be a new fuel tax, it could be anything. That department has to deal with it. And so it's good for y'all to be able to have a relationship with the department and talk to them about what's reality on their abilities to enforce and get their firsthand understanding of it. We deal with them every day to whether, again, just kind of inside ball. If a producer, let's say, we'll just talk about a brewery, just kind of an education. A brewery is opening. They have to go to the department, make sure they have everything in order that's required by the state. The department goes and checks them out, make sure it's a checklist. They do all the different things. Then once they're up and going and they're wanting to have a product that's distributed, they have to get the federal government to sign off on it. Then they assign it. They go to the state, fill out a form, make sure that they've identified the product and all the requirements. They assign, that brewer or supplier assigns it to a wholesaler and a territory that brewer wants it distributed in. Then, and only then, can the wholesaler get the product. You can't just say, well, I'm gonna assign it to them. The state has to look at it and verify it. They know where that's gonna go exactly, when, and it gets delivered. Our guys, it's all documented. Then we have to fill out certain types of receipts of when we sell it to the retailer. All of those things are tracked through the department. It's something that they are looking at every single day, not only to make sure that it's there, but then also the taxes that are remitted back to the department. They are very hands-on in this, and the relationships that the industry has with them and that they work with us is phenomenal. But without that, so you've got what y'all do, the Georgia Department of Revenue, similarly kind of what they do, and then to re-highlight what the suppliers, wholesalers, and retailers, we've talked about how it goes from one to the other, but without it, each one of those entities having their interactions with the department, it wouldn't work. They are the police there to use, they really are the enforcement arm of it and licensing arm of it. All of us, this industry works hand in hand with the department, but that's kind of just, if you're not familiar with the three-tier system, that kind of describes y'all's role and how you play in it, what its purpose is and why it's there, who it works through, which is the private side and the Department of Revenue side. So I would say that it has shown over the years that it's been on the code here that things change over time. But what has shown is it is a very reliable regulatory structure that I've heard. Y'all remember Larry O'Neill several years ago, he would talk about the most reliable source of income for this state is the excise tax. And in the last 3 years, there's been almost $600 billion. What's that?
Million.
600, I'm sorry, a little over $500 million in the last 3 years remitted as the excise tax on alcohol. And it's done in a very reliable manner and efficient.
And so, just to kind of to wrap up, alcohol has been and always likely will be one of the most heavily regulated products in the country. But it's the three-tier system that truly gives states and local governments solid controls over the distribution within its borders. But really, this last side, we were honored to do this presentation today, but the three people that are sitting in front of you are not the only alcohol representatives in the room, and certainly those folks and the people that are in your binders, we work with them every day. And I think at the end of the day, when we adjourn from here and we go back out into the halls, we work with these folks every single day, not only in the halls, but our wholesalers work with Stoney's members, work with suppliers, big, small, everywhere in between, and we really are partners out in the marketplace. So while there is a gentle tug of war that you might see under the dome of the gold dome, more than likely or not, nobody's running down here asking to burn down this system. I think that's a huge misnomer, and to take the authority to speak on behalf of the entire industry, I think most people behind me would also agree with that. So certainly thank you for the opportunity to come in front of you today, and if there are any questions, certainly entertain any.
Very good. Do we have any questions of these gentlemen by the committee before I introduce or to open it up for other members of the industry? That being said, I see several people out here that represent different parts of the retail industry that deals with alcohol. And if you'd like to stand up, introduce yourself, tell the members who you are, what your industry is, and just tell us how much you love this committee.
We do love this committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Angela Holland. Members of the committee, I'm Angela Holland, the president of the Georgia Association of Convenience Stores. We are also represented by Sheila Humberstone, who's currently presenting a bill in HHS. Thank you for the fancy presentation. I've got yellow legal paper. This committee is very important to us, very important to our industry, and you'll see us in here a lot. Our stores sell alcohol, tobacco, and lottery, and we are the predominant sales force for the Georgia Lottery Corporation, and we're proud to have a strong relationship with them and proud to support education. On a national average, convenience stores sell more than half of the beer purchased in the country, and we check more IDs than any other retail industry. Our industry is extremely competitive. In 2015, we had more than 7,000 convenience stores in the state. And the latest figures in 2017 show us that we have almost a 9% decrease in number of stores. The Augusta area alone has seen roughly a 24% decrease in convenience stores. Between 2015 and 2017, I'll be anxious to see what those numbers are, and we generally have those in April. According to the Nielsen data, convenience stores in Georgia employ more than 100,000 Georgians. We process almost 9 million transactions a day, and we sell over 7 billion gallons of fuel per year. We impact your constituents daily. As such, we welcome your questions when considering legislation, and we'd appreciate the opportunity to weigh in on legislation that affects our industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Kathy?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Kathy Kazava. I'm the president of the Georgia Food Industry Association, and I represent the supermarket industry. Angela and I talk about working together, and from slushy to superstore, we got you covered. So you need to know anything about the convenience stores, the supermarkets, we've got you covered, and it's an honor to be asked to come before the committee today. We also work very closely with the gentleman in front of you, and as you know, our industry is changing very quickly. Amazon boxes are everywhere in my neighborhood, just constantly. So as our customers continue to want the service, not only service, but the convenience factor continues to be very prominent for us as we try to figure out how to best take care of our customers. So we'll be before you as we try to remain competitive with, and again, I represent everybody from the IGAs, the Piggly Wigglies, the Walmarts, Krogers, Publixes of the world. We are all in the business of customer service. So we sell a good deal of beer, good deal of wine, good deal of tobacco. We mostly let tobacco be Angela's, but we do handle tobacco as well. But we are we're in the convenience business. We're not convenience stores, but we're in the convenience business. And as we compete against changing customers all the time with our demographics, wanting delivery, wanting pickup, wanting things that we're just trying to get in front of them and to offer them the services they need. So you'll see us before your committee talking about the issues that, again, affect our customers, which are your constituents. And if you have any questions on the supermarket industry, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nancy Palmer. I'm the executive director of the Georgia Craft Brewers Guild. And for the purposes of this committee, I'll also be working with the Georgia distilleries as well. We represent all of the breweries and brew pubs in the state. And we are newer to the three-tier system. Our industry is young. It is growing very quickly. And we have enjoyed working with the gentleman that presented today. We've enjoyed working with the Department of Revenue as we manage this growing industry. When I started my job just 5 years ago, we only had 15 members of our organization. Now we have 65. Many of them are in your districts. I hope they prove to be excellent citizens and corporate partners with you guys. And we really appreciate the opportunity to work with this committee as we work towards a 3-tier system that works for all the players, small and big.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Chuck McMullen with Parker Poe Consulting. We represent a small brewery up in Cartersville in Anheuser-Busch. We are excited about the partnership we just had with the city of Atlanta with the Super Bowl. I think you may have seen some of the ads around town, perhaps the building wraps. And of course, we had the iconic Clydesdales all throughout town over last weekend. The brewery in Cartersville is, we're proud that is one of 2 breweries in the country that actually makes water for national emergencies. And so we've got a proud relationship with the state, the city, and certainly this committee. And Mr. Chairman, you are by far our favorite chairman, so thank you very much. And we are happy to work with this committee and provide information as necessary. Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck. Do we have anyone else representing any aspects of the business community, alcohol or retails? Don't be bashful. You just feel free to come on up here if you'd like to have a word.
I don't have much to say. Elizabeth Miller, the Wine Institute. We represent most California wine, but some other of the largest wine lobby in the U.S. Have any questions about wine? Let me know. We appreciate all of you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any questions from any of the committees about it? We have Jeremy.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Jeremy Collins. I work with Holland & Knight, and we recently signed up Total Wine to represent them down here at the Capitol, and we look forward to speaking to each of you about our business model and working with you during the 2019 legislative session. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Jeremy. Anyone else? Bill Moore, you want to have a word? We might have some automotive engineering in this committee.
Don't drink and drive.
There you go. Do we have any of the committee members that has any questions from any of the folks who have identified themselves?
Great presentation. Thank you.
Well, to this as a as an addendum to my comments last week and in my instructions to the committee, this is a pretty important committee. We deal with hands-on with the retail business, the alcohol business, tobacco industry. I remember in the 90s we were deeply into the petroleum business. Was a little issue called retail divorcement. So I will tell you that in this committee you have an opportunity and may very well have an opportunity to hear just about any types of legislation under the shining sun that deals with regulatory matters. And that being said, is there anyone that wants to be heard to say anything in parting? If not, thank y'all for coming today, and thank you, gentlemen, for the presentation. If those of y'all who got up and introduced yourselves, could y'all be sure that Jan has your business cards and contact information, both cell and email, so that you might could be reached?
All right.
Enjoyable. Good.
We learned something.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, no problem. I'll get these turned in the clerk's office.
Pretty good damn minute.
That's right. Yeah.
40 damn minutes.
Yes, sir.
Gotta tell that because the way we're supposed to get here.